Shalom, brothers and sisters. Hope all is well with you guys. Hoping you guys are keeping the faith. We, as the Hebrew Israelites, according to biblical prophecies, heritage, and bloodline, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the chosen. Okay? The 12 lost tribes of Israel. On tonight's lesson, it's going to be a short lesson, I promise you. This lesson is going to be, there are many different perspectives of heaven. I've already done a video talking about many different perspectives of hell. You might want to check that video out. You could just go over to S.F.I.A. and it says many perspectives of hell. Something like that. I already done a video on that, guys. But tonight's lesson is going to be, there are many perspectives of heaven as well. So, before we get into the lesson, we give double honors to the elders. Salutations to the Akim that's pushing this truth and sincerity. Edifying the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that's out by the highways and byways doing the Most High's work through the spirit and power of Yahweh by S.F.I.A. And also, peace to the fam out there. So, let's get into the lesson. There are many different perspectives to heaven. Alright, so when you go into the Bible, I want you brothers and sisters to understand, when you come across the term heaven, let's write that down. When you come across H-E-A-V-E-N, when you come across heaven, there are many different perspectives to heaven. Okay? Many different perspectives. Many different perspectives to heaven. Okay? And actually there are 4 perspectives of heaven. So there are 4 perspectives of heaven. Okay? So when you're dealing with heaven in the Bible, when you come across it, heaven has 4 different perspectives. As you can see. Perspectives. And it's 4 different perspectives. Let's go over the first perspective of heaven. Alright, so we're going to go over number 1. Let's get a red marker. Okay, so number 1. What is the first perspective of heaven? The first perspective of heaven is what you would call the sky. Alright, the sky, the atmosphere. We'll show you that. So we're going into Genesis chapter 1. And we'll start with verse 6. So the first perspective of heaven is what we call the sky. The sky. You know, that consists of the clouds, you know, the luminaries, the sun, moon, and stars. That's the first perspective of heaven. Alright? So now, we're going into Genesis chapter 1, beginning with verse 6 to prove it. So this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, and we'll read on out concerning the first perspective, which is the atmospheres, the skies. Alright? Genesis 1 and 6. We'll read on down to verse 8. Genesis 1 and 6. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Alright? Genesis 1 and 7. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Genesis 1 and 8. And God called the firmament of heaven. God called the firmament heaven. That's what he called it. Genesis 1 and 8 tells you that God called the firmament heaven. Now, what is that talking about? The firmament that he called heaven in Genesis 1 and 8 is the sky. So that's the first perspective. He called the firmament heaven, pursuant to Genesis 1 and 8. All right, and it says, and evening and morning were the second day. So as you can see that. Now we're going to look at Genesis. We looked at Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 through 8. Now we're going to look at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14 through 20, dealing with the sky. All right. That's the first perspective. So Genesis 1, jump down to verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament. See? Because it's different levels in the atmospheric realm. All right? So he said, let there be lights in the firmament. What is in the firmament? What is within the firmament? The sky. The atmospheric realm. The sky. Which is referred to the heavens. So that's the first perspective. And it's Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons. Okay. Genesis 1 and 15. Let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven. The firmament of heaven is the sky. This is Genesis 1 and 15. To give light upon the earth, and it was so. Genesis 1 and 16, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also. So you can see that that's talking about the luminaries. Pursuing Genesis 1 and 16, God made two great lights, the sun and the moon, which lies within the what? The atmospheric realm, the sky, which is also referred to heaven. So that's the first perspective. I'm just showing you this, brothers and sisters. You know, I'm just showing it to you. Okay? Now, if you skip down to Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, right? If you skip down to Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, it says, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So it speaks about in Genesis chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, it speaks about the fowls of the air. Now, what is the fowls of the air? The birds, many different species of birds. Those are the fowls of the air in Genesis 1 and 20. And it says that they may fly above the earth. To fly above the earth is to fly within the firmament, the sky. Okay? In the open firmament of heaven. So that's what is related to the heaven when in the Bible. Sky. That's just the first perspective. Now we're going to move on to the second perspective, okay, of heaven. We're going to go over the four perspectives of heaven. Because like I said, keep in mind, there are four perspectives. Four perspectives. All right? So now we're on the second perspective. The second perspective. Now, what is the second perspective? The second perspective is what you would call the firmamental heavens. That's the firmamental heavens. Okay? Let's say firmamental heavens. Okay? Excuse the writing. That's the second perspective of heaven. The firmamental heavens, okay, or most people like to say the firmament, okay? The firmament. The firmamental heavens, or you can say the firmament. That's the second perspective, okay? So, let's go over the firmamental heavens, which some people refer to as the firmament, which is the second perspective. Okay, now we're going to go to Genesis 1 and 7. So let's look at Genesis 1 and 7. Genesis 1 and 7. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament. So this if you can see this, brothers and sisters, all right, okay, when the Alahayim, the rulers, were creating the earth, they put a firmament right here. See, it's like this little bow thing. This is called, I'm going to put F. I'm going to put F and circle F. This is called a firmament. That F stands for firmament. So we're talking about the firmamental heavens. Genesis 1:7 speaks about, it says, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So we know there are waters below the firmament. See those waters? There are waters below the firmament, and there are waters also above the firmament. Keep that in mind. The waters which are above the firmament, the waters right here which are above the firmament, let me draw an arrow. The waters which are above the firmament, I'm going to draw an arrow pointing to it so you can see it. So you see that arrow? That arrow pointing to it? The waters which are above the firmament are called the firmamental heavens. That's the water which is above the firmament. The water that is below the firmament, the water down here, is what we call seas. Okay, we call those seas, or we call those what? We call them oceans. Bodies of water. Rivers, you know, rivers, lakes, creeks, ponds, seas, oceans. That's the waters below the firmament. The waters which is above the firmament is known as the firmamental heavens. Okay, as you can see that. And that's the second perspective to heaven. Okay, the firmamental heavens. All right? Brothers and sisters, stay with me because I have a lot to cover. All right? So, we're talking about the waters above the firmament, which is the firmamental heavens. A firmament is like the firmament that the Most High put in the sky is like like a transparent glass, which is a dome. And no one can get outside this firmament. So keep in mind, ain't no white man went to space. Why? Because no one can get outside the firmament. Okay? No one have ever been to space. All right? Because no one can get outside the firmament. If you was to get outside the firmament, there would not be what they would call space. It would be nothing but heavenly water, which is the firmamental heavens. Because there is water above the firmament. And this is exactly what Genesis 1:7 says. Genesis 1:7, God made the firmament, divide the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. See? And this is Genesis 1:7 going over the firmamental heavens. Genesis 1:7. Now keep in mind, in the middle, that's that black arch with the F that stands for the firmament, which is in the middle. All right? So the black arch, which is in the middle, is the firmament. That's a glass dome. Okay? And no one can get outside of that glass dome. So no one has ever went to space. All right? There you have it. You have the first two perspectives. The first perspective, which is the sky, you know, that is known as heaven. And then the second perspective, which is the firmamental heavens. The firmamental heavens. Okay? So we'll give you a precept to the second perspective, the firmamental heavens, then we'll move to the third perspective. So let's go to the three holy children in the Apocrypha. These 14 books were removed from the Bible by the Roman Catholic Protestants in the year of the 1800s. All right, this is the three holy children, and we're going to look at three holy children, and let's look at first, because it's only just one chapter. So, chapter 1, verse 38. Oh, all ye waters that be above the heavens. See? Oh, all ye waters that be above the heavens, bless ye the Lord, praise and exalt him above all forever. So what realm is the waters that's located above the heavens? That's called the firmamental heavens. So that's the second perspective. Now let's move to the third perspective. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of that. Because we're now on the third perspective. The third perspective, dealing with heavens. What is the third perspective? The third perspective, dealing with heavens, is what you would call the third heaven. It's called the third heaven. All right? The third heaven. Okay? That's the third perspective. The third heaven. Now, what is the third heaven called? What's another name for the third heaven? It's called the heavens of heaven, or the dwelling place of the Most High. The dwelling place of, and I put TMH for the Most High. Dwelling place of the Most High. That's the third perspective out of the heavens. So the third perspective is what you would call a heaven. It's the third heaven, which is also known as the dwelling place of the Most High. And we'll show you that. So when you're dealing with the atmospheric realms, there is three heavens. There is the sky, which is inside the firmament. Then above the firmament, there are the firmamental heavens. All right. And then above the firmamental heavens, there is what you call the heavens of heavens, or the third heaven, which is the dwelling place of the Most High, the Holy One of Israel. And I'll show it to you quickly, brothers and sisters. So let's go to 2 Corinthians 12:2. It says, I knew a man in Christ about 14 years ago. That man in Christ was Paul the Apostle, because he's telling his testimony here. Because what happened to Paul the Apostle, dealing with 2 Corinthians 12:2, when he said that he knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. What happened to Paul was he was simply stoned for pushing the gospel. And when he was stoned, he had an NDE. What is that? Near-death experience, where his spirit evacuated from his body, and he was caught up to the third heaven. He was caught up to the heavens of heavens, or the dwelling place of the Most High. And he spoke about it. Let's read it. 2 Corinthians 12:2. I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. That's talking about himself. Whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. So he said basically he didn't know, was he within his body, or his spirit without his body. Most likely he was without his body if he was called up to the dwelling place of the Most High. But he said he cannot tell. God knew it. Such and one caught up to the third heaven. So 2 Corinthians 12:2 tells you that after Paul was stoned and nearly killed, his spirit was evacuated from the body to be caught up to the dwelling place of the Most High, which the Bible prescribes at the third heaven. All right. Reading on, 2 Corinthians 12:3. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth. 2 Corinthians 12:4. How that he was caught up into paradise. So you can see they also call the third heaven, which is the dwelling place of the Most High. Another name for that is also known as paradise. It's known as paradise. So whether you want to call it the third heaven, the dwelling place of the Most High, or paradise, all is synonymous. And as you can see in 2 Corinthians 12:4, says how that he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words, which is not lawful for a man to utter. So Paul heard things going on in the heavens of heavens, or some may say the third heaven, that was unspeakable. Words that was not lawful for man to utter. So you can see that this is simply where you go when you die. It's called the spirit world as well. It's called the spirit world. Spirit world. So the third heaven has many names. Okay? Where the Most High dwells, the third heaven has many names. Most people call it paradise. Some people call it spirit world. Why? Because all spirits go there after they have had this human experience. After you die, all spirits go there. They call it the third heaven. So forth, we are on the third perspective dealing with heaven. We went over the first one being the sky within the firmament. We went over the second perspective, which being the firmamental heavens, which is above the atmospheric realm, which contains nothing but water. And then above the firmamental heavens, this is the third heaven, the throne of the Most High, the dwelling place of the Most High, paradise, or you can call it the spirit world. Okay? As you can see that. It's many verses on this. The verses that I have given you, brothers and sisters, concerning this is 2 Corinthians 12, chapter 12, verse 2, and we read down to the fourth verse. But it's many more book, chapter, and verses on the third heaven. Okay? Let me give you one more cross-reference on the third heaven, then we'll move to the fourth perspective dealing with heaven. All right? So, let's go to Ezekiel 1 and 26. Now, it reads, and above the firmament. Now, what is above the firmament? The dwelling place of the Most High. Okay? Above the firmament is called the third heaven. For we read on in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 26. The sky, that's the first heaven. The sky, that's the first heaven. The atmospheric realm, the sky, which lies the clouds, the sun, moon, stars, the luminary. That's the first heaven. Now, above the sky, which is the firmament, that arch, that is called the second heaven, which is called the firmamental heavens. The firmament, that's the second heaven. Now, what's above the firmament? That's the third heaven, where the Most High dwells. All right? Also known as paradise or the spirit world. Okay? So this is Ezekiel 1 and 26. And above the firmament, the third heaven, that was over the heads, was the likeness of a throne. See? Because that's where the Most High dwells. That's where he sits. As the appearance of sapphire stone. Sapphire is a bluish gemstone. So this throne was like bluish, glorious bluish color. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. So Ezekiel in the spirit seeing a vision of the Most High sitting on the throne above the firmament in the third heavens. This is Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 26. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 27. And as I saw, as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 28. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. So Ezekiel seen the Most High sitting on the throne above the firmamental heavens, which is the third heavens. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. So that was Ezekiel, okay? Chapter 1, verses 26 to 28. Okay? Ezekiel 1, okay, and verses 26 through 28 also speaks about Ezekiel called it the heavens above the firmament. So that's the third perspective of heaven. All right. Now we are on the fourth perspective of heaven. The fourth perspective of heaven. So we are now on the fourth perspective, as you can see. Because, like I said, there are four. So we're on the last perspective of heaven. Now, what is the last perspective of heaven? Before we get to that, the first perspective of heaven, the sky. The second perspective of heaven, the firmamental heavens. Okay? What they would call the firmament. The third perspective of heavens is what you would call the third heaven. Right? Which some people know it as paradise or the spirit world or the place of the Most High. All right? So, in the fourth perspective, what is that? Rulership. Heaven is in correlation to rulership. Heaven is also broken down in the Bible as a form of rulership. Okay? Rulership. So, I'm going to make, as you can see, rulership. Rulership. That's the fourth perspective. Rulership. So the first perspective of heaven, sky. Second perspective of heaven, firmamental heavens. Okay? The firmamental heavens with the waters. All right? That's above the sky. The third perspective of heaven is the third heaven where the Most High dwells. Some call it the spirit world, paradise. The fourth perspective is known as rulership. And we definitely going to get into this one. Known as rulership. Now, brothers and sisters, rulership, that is personified as the fourth perspective of heaven. We know that throughout the Bible, the Israelites constantly rebelled against the Most High by disobeying His commandments. Right? Part of that punishment for disobeying the Most High commandments as the Israelites, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, because you broke the covenant, we still doing it today, but we need to stop and return to the laws. The part of the punishment that happened to the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans was a result of the curses coming upon us as a nation. Now, he also tells you that linked to this punishment that fell on us, that the Israelites will be scattered throughout different parts of the earth. And you can read that in Deuteronomy 28:64. Also Deuteronomy 4:27. It said that the Israelites would be scattered among the heathen. So as a result of being scattered among the heathen, we went into several captivities. All right? Now, remember the captivity of Egypt? We was in Egypt for 430 years. Okay, you can go ahead and tie that in with the Egyptians ruling over us for 430 years. Because when you go into Exodus chapter 12, verse 40, it tells you that the sojourner of the children of Israel was in Egypt 430 years. So the Egyptians was in power. Meaning that the Egyptians, when they was ruling over us those 430 years, okay, when they was ruling over us 430 years, you know, I say they was ruling over us 400 years, because 30 years while we was in Egypt, we didn't catch hell the 30 years. After the 30 years, then we caught hell, which were 400 years. So altogether, us living in Egypt was 430 years total. But the first 30 years we were in Egypt, we didn't catch no hell. It's just after the 30 years, we caught 400 years of oppression and slavery from the Egyptians. So when the Egyptians were ruling over us, that was their rulership, man. That was their heaven. Every Gentile nation has a period of time to rule in the earth, and that's in relation to the rulership is in relation to heaven. All right. So from the Egyptians down to the Assyrians, 721 BC, Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, conquered the 10 northern tribes. The Assyrians rose up in their rulership. They rose up in their power. That was their heaven. Then on down from the Assyrian captivity, you had the Babylonian captivity, 586 BC. All right. And when the Babylonians came in power, that was their rulership. That was their heaven. All right. See? So, and then after the Babylonians, we know the Persians conquered the Babylonians, right? And Israel was serving in captivity 70 years in Babylon. And then when the Persians came, then that was their rulership, which is heaven. After the Persians, you know, the Greeks defeated the Persians in 331 BC. Alexander the Great conquered the Persians, you know, and that's when the Grecians rose up in power. That was their rulership, which was their heavens, the Greeks, when they rose up in power. And then after the Grecians, right, dealing with the Maccabean revolt that took place against the Greeks in the year 165 BC, the Greek Empire fell. In 165 BC, the Greek Empire fell to who? The Romans. All right? And when the Romans gained power and control in the earth, that was their rulership. That was their heaven. All right? And then the Roman Empire fell in the year 193 AD. Okay? And we blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, after the year 193 AD, we took over and we ruled as the Moors during what you would call the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages or the medieval times. We ruled as the Moors, and that was our rulership, and that was our heaven. But what happened after 1453? From 193 AD to 1453, what happened? The so-called white man came back in power. The revived Roman Empire, which is America today, and conquered and subdued the children of Israel. And ever since 1453, the Renaissance period, the white man has gained power, position, and structure in the earth, ruling the earth ever since. Okay? So, you have to ask yourself who's ruling the earth right now. Okay? The so-called white man, Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. That's the so-called white man. The Edomites, the descendants of Esau. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, and if not, where and who is he? That's Job 9:24. So it tells you in Job 9:24, the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. So if the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, which is the so-called white man, the Edomites, that's letting you know that they're ruling. And what is rulership referred to? Heaven, man. So this is the white man heaven. But what it is for the Israelites, this is our hell. Now you have to look at the many perspectives of hell to understand that we as the nation of Israel, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we in hell because hell, one of the perspectives of hell is a bad condition, man. Oppression and slavery. So we in hell while the white man is in his heaven. He's in his rulership, which is referred to heaven. So please understand the fourth perspective of heaven. The fourth perspective of heaven is rulership. And every Gentile nation have had rulership in the earth. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. And I'll show you this. Every Gentile nation have had rulership, have had their heaven in the earth. Let's look at Daniel chapter 7 and verse 2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night. Okay, so as for the rulership, we're going to put down here Daniel chapter 7 verse 2. Reading on out, that's where we at. Daniel 7 and 2. I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. Daniel 7 and 2. Daniel 7 and 3. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now these four great beasts is referring to the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans, man. That's Daniel chapter 7, verse 3. It speaks of four great beasts. So Daniel chapter 7, verse 3 speaks of four great beasts. The Babylonians, okay, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. Each of those heathenistic nations had their rulership and time in the earth, meaning having their heaven in the earth. The Babylonians' heaven fell, and the Persians conquered. The Persians' heaven fell, and the Grecians conquered. The Grecians' heaven fell, and the Romans conquered. The Romans' heaven fell in 193 AD, and we conquered during the Middle Ages, but our heaven fell, right? In 1453, the white man came back in power and subdued us as the children of Israel. And he gained power and structure back in the earth. Okay? And now this is the revived Roman Empire, which Daniel 7 speak of as and Daniel 7 it speaks of 4 great beasts. And after the 4 great beasts, it speaks about in Daniel 7 and 8 horns that came up among the 10, and it speaks of a little horn. That's talking about America, the revived Roman Empire, which the white man gained back power and structure in the earth. Okay, dealing with Revelation, it speaks of a 7-headed dragon, and one of his heads was wounded. That was the Roman Empire, but it said that that wound was revived. That's talking about Rome came back in power as America during the Renaissance period, the revived Roman Empire. So the white man is ruling. This is his heaven. Okay, keep in mind, know that for sure. All right, let's move on. Okay, Lamentations 2 and 1. Lamentations 2 and 1. Because we're talking about the fourth perspective of heaven. The fourth perspective of heaven being rulership. Lamentations 2 and 1. Let's look into that. Because before we fell as a nation, we were ruling in the beginning of the earth, man. All right? Israel were ruling. Until we broke the Most High commandments. And I'm going to show you this. Lamentations 2 and 1. This is a precept to show you that heaven also means rulership. Lamentations 2 and 1. How had the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven into the earth the beauty of Israel, and remembered not his footstool in the day of his anger. So it tells you right here in Lamentations 2 and 1, it said the daughter of Zion, that's the Israelites, the children of Israel, said the Most High did what to us out of his anger, because we broke the commandments. The Most High did what to us in Lamentations 2 and 1? Cast down from heaven to earth. So in Lamentations 2 and 1, it tells you he cast down from heaven to earth. So was the Israelites ever up in some atmospheric realm, floating around with wings, rejoicing? No, right here in Lamentations 2 and 1, cast down from heaven to earth is meaning is to simply go from ruling in the earth, simply from ruling as kings and queens to being slaves. That's what it's talking about. To having a position of power, to losing a position of power, and being subdued by the heathen. That's what Lamentations 2 and 1 is speaking about. Being cast down from heaven to earth. It's not literal in Lamentations 2 and 1. This is metaphorical. This is a similitude. We was on top, but we was cast down from heaven, cast down from rulership as the top nation of Israel, to go in oppression and slavery for breaking the Most High commandments. So when we were subdued by the heathen, they gained rulership over us. They had heaven. Lamentations 2 and 1. Let me show you another one. Deuteronomy 11 and 21. Talking about the children of Israel. That your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers, to give them as the days of heaven upon the earth. See that? So Deuteronomy 11 and 21 speaks about the children of Israel having days of heaven upon the earth. Now, what are those days of heaven in Deuteronomy 11 and 21? Talking about rulership, because in the beginning we was kings and queens. We had everything on lock. But when we transgressed against the Most High commandments, he cast us down from heaven to earth. He took away our rulership. And we went in captivity and servitude, which is hell. While the white man gained power, position, and gained his heaven. So this is the white man's heaven right now. But it's not you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans' heaven. It's your hell. When the Most High set us back on top as the nation of Israel, then heaven will be restored to us while the white man go into his hell and all these other nations. So that was Deuteronomy 11 and 21. Another one is Leviticus 26:19, dealing with what? Rulership being heaven. Leviticus 26:19. All right? Trying to go through this as fast as I can. Leviticus 26:19 says, and I will break the pride of your power, because the Most High said this will happen to the children of Israel. So he said in Leviticus 26:19, This will happen to the children of Israel if they disobey the Most High. He said, I will break the pride of your heaven. I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron and your earth as brass. So what was the heaven the Most High said that he would make as iron? It's talking about position of power and rulership in the earth. So that's what the fourth perspective of heaven is. Rulership, man. He broke our heaven. He made our heaven iron. So who did our heaven go to, man? It went to the heathens. Now, what is the last heathenistic nation to rule? The so-called white man, the nation of Edom, man. This is rulership. This is his heaven right now. Okay? Whether you believe this or not, man, we don't have time for brothers and sisters that want to play games. We here for the elect. We trying to edify you and tell you that heaven has four perspectives. And we breaking it down. I'm breaking it down to the best of my ability, man. All right? Now, what's going to happen in the end to the so-called white man that has heaven, position, and rulership in the earth? We'll show you that. But before we get into that, let me show you one more. 1 Chronicles 28:5. So, 1 Chronicles, y'all write these down. Okay? 1 Chronicles 28:5. Okay? That's 1 Chronicles 28:5. And of all my sons, for the Lord have given me many sons, right? He have chosen Solomon, my son. Now, who is talking about? Who's talking here? King David, man. All right? So, it was said in 1 Chronicles 28:5 that David said, the Most High, Yahweh Shai, have given him many sons, and he have chosen Solomon, which was the son of David, my son, to sit upon the throne of the kingdom of the Lord over Israel. So David said in 1 Chronicles 28:5 that the Most High chose his son Solomon to do what? To sit upon the throne of the kingdom. See that? So to sit upon the throne of the kingdom, what is that? Israelites being in rulership. Okay, Israelites being in power. All right? So that was taken from us though, man. That was taken from us. All right? So, yeah, man. We don't no longer obtain rulership and power in the earth no more. All right? Because that was taken from us for disobedience. And it was given to the so-called white man. As the last heathen nation, as the nation of Edom, to rule in the earth before Yahweh Shai, who they call Jesus the Christ, and the Most High comes back to take him down out of his position and power, man. All right? Now, we're going to show you that the white man will fall. The white man will fall from his position of power and rulership. This is Isaiah 14:12. All thou falling from heaven, O Lucifer. When you look at Lucifer in the Hebrew, Lucifer in the Hebrew is 1966, which is Hallel, which means morning star. All right. Now, Isaiah 14:12 is twofold because it talks about King Nebuchadnezzar when he exalted himself as the morning star and he fell. And it's twofold because it talks about the restoration of Israel in the last days when Israel is restored, how the white man will fall from their power, the so-called Edomites, the children of Esau, so to speak. They will fall from their power. Okay, it says, how, O Lucifer, son of the morning. So Lucifer is not Satan, okay? Satan is a spiritual demon that cannot be seen. However, Lucifer is a nation of people, and we'll show you. So Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground? So when it says in Isaiah 14:12, okay, Isaiah 14:12, all right, Isaiah 14:12, when it speaks about Lucifer, let's talk about the so-called white man exalting himself as the morning star. It says, how has thou fallen from heaven? Because Isaiah 14:12 is a futuristic prophecy. It hasn't happened yet. So Isaiah was prophesying this in the spirit as a futuristic event to come. The whole chapter, the whole 14th chapter of Isaiah is a future event, is a future time to come. is dealing with the restoration of Israel, how we will be exalted in the last day. So before we be exalted, this white man got to come out of rulership and power. He got to come out of this heaven. So it says, how has thou fallen, O Lucifer? How has thou fallen, that bright and morning star? Because Lucifer ain't really even supposed to be there, because that's a Latin term. Isaiah was written in Hebrew, not Latin. Hebrew came before the Latin, so Lucifer don't even supposed to be there. It's supposed to be Halal or Hillel, which means morning star. And just like Nebuchadnezzar exalted himself during the time of the Babylonians, you know, the so-called white man, as the Edomites, exalt themselves in these last days as the morning star, which sits high and look down low on other nations and prey upon other nations. Now, if you skip to Isaiah 14, verse 16, you'll see that Lucifer is not Satan, because it speaks of him as being a man. Isaiah 14:16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man? See, so Lucifer is man. Who is that? The Edomites, the nation of Esau. Is this the man that made the earth to tremble? Nuclear capability. That did shake kingdoms. Nuclear capability, as you can see. Now, when you read on down in Isaiah 14:21, it speaks about this same Lucifer having children. So we know that's not Satan. That's talking about the nation of Esau that will fall, the so-called white man that will fall from his rulership, that will fall from his position of heaven before the restoration of Israel. See? It said, and he's falling today. You can see it slowly. The white man's falling. He's coming out of power, man. All right? Isaiah 14:21. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. Because the so-called white man has to pay for the atrocities that was carried out on Israel. He has to pay for what his fathers have done. You so-called white people have to pay for what your fathers have done to the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So it said, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. So Lucifer has children, letting you see that Lucifer is not Satan. Lucifer is just morning star, which in Hebrew is pronounced as halal. Who exalt themselves like the morning star? The so-called white man. So this is talking about in Isaiah 14:12. This is talking about in Isaiah 14:12 how the white man will fall from his rulership, position of power in the earth, and go into hell, which is captivity and servitude, while the Israelites be restored and exalted to the heavenly state would be restored back to them. All right? Dealing with another book, chapter, and verse on how the so-called white man is going to fall from his rulership. He's going to fall from his heaven. All right? Which is the fourth perspective, rulership. Okay? This is Isaiah 34. Still in the book of Isaiah, 34th chapter, verse 1, and we'll read down to verse 4. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. Isaiah 34:2. For the indignation of the Lord, Yahweh, is upon all nations, man, and his fury upon all their armies. Because it's talking about the day of the Lord, man. It's talking about Armageddon, when the Most High is going to jack up these Gentile nations, okay, on the behalf of what they did to the elect of the nation of Israel. So Isaiah 34:2 says, for the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations. The fury, man, the anger of the Lord is upon all these Gentile nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He have utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter. Isaiah 34:3. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stench shall come up out of their carcasses. Because the Most High going to put a lot of you heathens to death. Okay, including some of our people. The Israelites that don't want to keep the commandments, the 2/3. It says, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. Mountains referring to Esau's domains, right? Okay, the governments, basically. Isaiah 34:4. And all the hosts of heaven. See, so it speaks about the hosts of heaven. Who is the host of heaven? The leaders, the elites, the 13 illuminated bloodlines, the international banking families are known as the hosts of heaven. They the host of heaven. They the host of the rulership. They the host of power and position in the earth. This is Isaiah 34:4. All the hosts of heaven, the Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the Bilderberg, the DuPonts, Rockefellers, and so forth. These rich, top, elite families is known as the hosts of heaven. It says the hosts of heaven, Isaiah 34:4, shall be dissolved, meaning that these leaders, that their power shall be broken, man. In the heavens, this is Isaiah 34:4, in the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. Meaning that all these Gentiles, these heathens that have position and powers in the earth, while we being as Israel is on the bottom, it tells you in Isaiah 34:4, all these heathenistic nations, their heavens shall be dissolved. So what does heaven goes back to? Heaven goes back to rulership. Or you can say kingdoms. You can say kingdoms. You can say kingdoms. So that rulership, when you have a kingdom or rulership, that is known as heaven. Isaiah 34:4 tells you that it will soon be brought down. Why? Because all these heathenistic nations that have power and position in the earth, they're known as, they're in the heavens. But the heavens going to be done away with. Also in 2 Peter 3:6. Because that's the cross reference. 2 Peter 3:6. 2 Peter's 3:6. 2 Peter 3:6. It speaks about sort of similar to Isaiah 34. 2 Peter 3:6. All right. It says, whereby the world that then was being overflowed with water perished. See? 2 Peter 3:7, but the heavens, what is this talking about? But the heavens and the earth, which are now. The heavens is going back to rulership, position, and powers that the heathen have obtained. Their rulership, their position and power in the earth. The heavens, 2 Peter 3:7, and the earth, which are now, by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Now, a lot of you may say that the earth, okay, picture of the earth, okay, which is two-dimensional. A lot of people say, well, the earth is also going to be destroyed, that the whole entire earth is going to be obliterated. That's not so. That's not so. Why do I say that, brothers and sisters? Because the earth is here to stay. It's here forever. Ecclesiastes 1:4. So, Ecclesiastes 1:4. Ecclesiastes 1:4. It tells you that the earth abideth forever. You can look, it says, matter of fact, let me read that right quick. Ecclesiastes 1:4 says, one generation passeth away, another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. So the earth is not going anywhere. So when 2 Peter 3:7 tells you about the heavens, which is the rulerships of many heathens, the kingdoms that they possess, the heavens and the earth, which are now, right, by the same word, are kept in store to be reserved unto fire. That don't mean the whole earth is going to be blown up, because Ecclesiastes 1:4 tells you the earth abideth forever. But as it reads on, as you notice in 2 Peter 3, and 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away. That's 2 Peter 3 and 10. It tells you that the heavens shall pass away. Now, what is it talking about? Rulership, the kingdoms. The kingdoms. Okay? The so-called white man kingdoms and the heathens, their kingdoms, their heavens shall pass away. See that? Their rulership that is referred to heaven, the fourth perspective, it shall pass away with a great noise. Meaning that these nuclear warheads, these missiles, these ICBMs is going to burn this white man power, rulership, his power structure, his domain, his kingdoms is going down by these missiles. And after these missiles burn his structure down, which is his rulership, his kingdom, then the Most High is going to create new heaven, new earth. Now what is that? A whole new systematic order of blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans ruling in the earth. All right? That's what it's talking about. So when you see heavens, the fourth perspective is rulership of kingdoms. All right? The fourth perspective. So it tells you about the heavens will pass away in 2 Peter 3 and 10, meaning the kingdoms of the white man and all these other heathens going to be destroyed. All right? When you look at Revelation 21, it says, and I saw a new heaven, Revelation 21 verse 1, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. Now, is that talking about the whole atmospheric realm, the sun, stars, all that being obliterated and destroyed? These missiles just going to blow the whole entire earth up? No. Revelation 21 and 1 speaks of new heaven and new earth. Speaks about a new position of rulership, and power, a new kingdom to come, which is referred to new heaven. So you got to understand that's the fourth perspective. When it speaks about rulership and kingdoms, it's referring to heaven. All right? S.F.I.A in the Apocrypha. All right? The 14 books that was taken out to King James by the Roman Catholic Protestants in the 18th century. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus, or some may call it S.F.I.A 10 and 8, to get more take on heaven being his rulership. This is S.F.I.A 10 and 8. S.F.I.A 10 and 8. It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by the sea, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. That's S.F.I.A 10 and 8. Speaks about the kingdom being translated from one people to another. What does that mean? That the position of power is transferred from one people to another, because Egypt had it. Okay? Egypt had position of power, rulership in the earth as heaven. And then Assyria had position of power, rulership in the earth as heaven. Babylonians had position of power, rulership in the earth as heavens. The Persians had position of power, rulership in the earth as heavens. The Greeks had position of power, rulership in the earth as heavens. The Romans had position of power, rulership in the earth as heavens. And then when the Roman Empire fell, during the Middle Ages, we as the Moors, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, Israelites as the Moors, had Islamic, we was wicked as hell, but we had Islamic customs during the medieval times. We was the Israelites as the Moors. We had our position and power as the kingdom. But it fell in 1453 when the white man got out in the Renaissance period. And then he gained back his position of power, rulership in the earth. So, and ever since 1453, this devil been ruling, so he's still in his heaven while we in our hell. But we will get restored to our position of power and rulership in the earth. That's why Revelation 21 and 1 says a new heaven, meaning a new position of power and rulership for the children of Israel, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So as you can see in the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus 10 and 8 says that the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Because every Gentile, heathenistic nation have had their appointed time to rule in the earth, going back to Daniel chapter 7, the 4 beasts and the little horn. You understand? So that's what rulership or kingdom refers to in the fourth perspective of heaven. when the Romans was in power in Christ's time, when the Romans was in power, you understand, that was their heaven. You know what I'm saying? So, and they came back in power in the Renaissance. So I hope I broke that down, man, because when 2 Peter speaks about, 2 Peter 3 and 10 speaks about the heavens passing away in 2 Peter 3 and 10, when it speaks about the heavens passing away, it's not talking about the whole entire earth being blown up. That's why you must know this too when you read the Bible. You must know this too. When they speak about, let me see, when they speak about the end of the world. When they speak about the end of the world, it's not talking about the whole entire earth just being destroyed and blown up. When they speak about the end of the world is a nation, the end, their rulership and position of power, man. That's what it speaks about. You can look at that in Matthew 24 and 3. The disciples asked Christ, when shall the end of the world be? Meaning that when shall the so-called white man position of power, rulership be? Because during their time, they was in the Roman Empire. So they was telling Christ, when shall the Roman Empire end? You understand? So the end of the world doesn't mean the whole entire, universe as a whole. You know what I'm saying? The end of the world don't mean the whole entire earth being destroyed. It just means the end of the world means the end of someone's rulership or position of power in the earth, man. Like in 2 Ezra, in the Apocrypha. In 2 Ezra chapter 6, verses 8 through 9, it says, for Esau is the end of the world. The end of the world. Meaning that the so-called white man, the end of the world, meaning that Esau is the end of the world, meaning that the white man will be the last Gentile heathenistic nation to rule in the earth before his power and position of rulership is taken down. So you got to know that, man. You know what I'm saying? In Luke chapter 2, verse 1, it speaks about the Roman Empire as the world. Okay? About the world being taxed on the season, which was during that time the Roman Empire. So I hope I said enough that was edifying to you guys on the behalf of the 4 perspectives of heaven, man. So yeah, there's 4 perspectives of heaven. Just like it's many perspectives of hell. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking notes. Share this knowledge and this truth with other blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Wake as many of our people up as you can. Please subscribe to the channel, Solid Foundation, Israelite Academy. We thank you for your time. Shalom.